earliest idea of who I wanted to be growing up was my father. My father was a police officer, and so I wanted to be a police officer. And then I saw a shuttle launch on television, and I thought, I really want to drive one of those. And yes, I said drive because I didn't know any pilots or engineers even for that matter. I'm a public servant, and I have been for 22 years, since January of 1998. And so I ask myself, have I done all that I can for my country and for my family? I have fantasized about stepping on the moon. It's my dream. My dream is to work on the surface of the moon. And being able to launch humans from American soil is a very big part of that. I was sitting at my desk in the Russell Senate Office building, and I got a phone call from a Houston phone number, and by the time I answered, I missed it. And so I called back, and after a lot of waiting and being transferred, I was transferred to Janet Kavandi, who was the chair of our board, and she asked me if I wanted to come to Houston and commence training. And I actually pinched myself several times walking back to my office. There is no way that this is a real thing. I'm gonna wake up and be so disappointed. When I woke up the next day, and I actually had an email from Janet saying it was not a dream. That was actually unreal.
He's a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, where he flew F-18s. He came to us from Washington, D.C., where he was serving as the United States Navy Legislative Fellow in the United States Senate. Victor?
Being selected for this job, you can't help but to think of, I've got so many friends that I know could do this job well. And that feeling of, wow, why didn't they get it? And, feeling like you're not really good enough cut out for the job. And I felt all of those things. Being a father, a husband, all of those things come with doubt. And I think you have to learn to get comfortable with the doubt. They call things moonshots when people accomplish something amazing. No matter how good a story you tell, people are captivated by real-world accomplishment. It's our generation's opportunity to have our own literal moonshot, and then to continue inspiring future generations to reach for the moon.
They not only have the right stuff, they represent the full tapestry of American diversity. Their journey begins now, and the nation will be right beside them, reaching for the stars.
Pretty cool. Wow. Pretty cool.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to see
So,
more NASA content,
it is now
click the like, comment,
my
and subscribe.
distinct pleasure, I think,
Hold on, let me get the YouTube off. It's still pretty
to
loud.
introduce Vic Lover, Astronaut. Oh, good. We do have awesome. And so I'm on turn. Can we get video and sound? Turn the mute
Yes.
off.
We did. We're off mute.
Hey Vic, can you hear us?
I hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me know when it's my turn.
Hey Vic, you got the mic.
I got the mic. I've got the controls. Well, thank you, Marco. Thank you to all of the teachers and mentors, cousins and big brothers and sisters that are there. Thank you to all of you students who showed up on a Saturday to engage in growth and development. I think it's amazing that you all are there, and it's amazing to have this opportunity to share a little bit of it with you. I don't have a prepared talk. You saw that video, and Marcos and I were talking about the prevalence of self-doubt. And I said to him, I would love to just link up and share and say a little bit to you about it, because it is absolutely real. I've been at this grind for 26 years, at NASA for 10. And I don't know if you probably don't watch NASA TV, but just this past Monday, NASA announced some pretty big news. And I will tell you, I've known for about a month. Yesterday was 1 month. I found out I was going to be a part of this Artemis 2 crew going around the moon for a month. And when they asked me on March 7th, one of the first things that popped into my head was, why me? Why not somebody else? And a whole lot of other things. So this isn't something that you graduate from either. There are definitely tools to handle it. And one of the tools that I've used, and I'm really grateful that someone recommended it to me a long time ago, is journaling. This shelf right here, all of these books right here behind my hand are journals, blank pages. I now do most of my journaling electronically, but I write. There's so much that you can learn from yourself. I read things that I wrote when I was 19, and I'm blown away by some of the thoughts I put down on paper. And so, but at some point as well, you also have to learn to work through the doubt. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Right Stuff, and I'm not just bringing this up because it's about space. I mean, I am a little bit biased, but in the movie The Right Stuff, they're talking about how those it was all men back then, but that group of people is able to work through challenging situations that would cause most people to stop in their tracks. And most of them had that from their military flight training. And I am also a naval aviator. One of the presenters for you today is a fellow former naval aviator. And our training enables us to know what the right thing is, even in a situation that you didn't plan for. And that's a very important skill in dealing with self-doubt as well. It enables you to work through those feelings, whatever they may be. And so it's also hard work and training. Being consistent is a part of an approach to overcome self-doubt. I'm going to stop because I would love to just maybe get into a little bit of a dialogue, whether you have questions about imposter syndrome, survivor's guilt, or self-doubt, or anything else. Living in space is quite a challenging thing to do. Actually, it looks really cool. NASA makes it look nice and easy on TV, but man, we work really hard. We grind, and I would love to share a little bit of that grind with you as well. And I'll end with this. The concept in The Right Stuff, or just when I talk to folks and try to do outreach, one of the things I encourage, hold on, let me maximize your video because I really want to see you all. I'm trying to make my video smaller. All right, now I can see you all a little better. Do we have any athletes in the room? Raise your hand if you're an athlete. Okay, all right. Do we keep your hands up? I'm sorry if you get a little bit of a shoulder workout, but go on, keep that hand up. We have dippers in the room. Musicians, hands up, hands up, hands up. But athletes, put those hands back up. Put your hands back up, athletes. And because you're an athlete, I know you can handle it. Come on now. Okay, artists. Any artists in the room? Athletes, musicians, artists. So I think I've seen every hand go up. Is there anything else I forgot? Is there anything that anybody identifies with? This is a skill you have that you're comfortable with that I haven't brought up yet. Let's see. What else? Did I miss anybody? Did I leave anybody out? Okay. When it comes to those things that you feel gifted in, your athleticism, your artistry, are you pretty confident? Do you have self-doubt in that area? Or is that one of your stronger, more confident, high self-esteem areas?
I mean, everybody has self-doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask everyone that speaks, how about introduce yourself and then either ask your question or respond to what he's asking.
Yeah, what was your name, young man, that answered? Yes, you.
Hello, my name is Darion Manson. I'm a junior at Lincoln High School, and I'm also a co-captain of the basketball team.
Awesome. Well, very nice to meet you, and thank you for stepping up and responding. So, but is basketball an area that you have a little more healthy self-esteem, or is it one of the areas where you have a little bit more of a challenge? And I realize I may be putting you on the spot, but is it one of the areas you have a little more comfort or a little more self-doubt?
I have a little bit more comfort playing basketball.
Okay, all right. But then there are facets of your life where you may have more self-doubt than comfort. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else in the room feel the same way? Is there something, whether it's, I love to write poetry and music. I could sit and just be creative all day. This technical stuff, man, it was a leap for me. Yeah, I saw some hands go up. So that is actually a very important thing to understand, though. So you probably did not step on a basketball court or a football field or put pen to paper to write, poetry or rhymes, raps, or draw pictures and have very high confidence the very first time that you did it. Is that true? Can you relate to that too? You probably didn't start with high self-esteem, but you built it over time because you stuck to it. You committed to a thing. And so I'm tying this back to, there are areas in your life where you may have higher doubts, but you've already honed a path and a pattern, a process for getting over self-doubt in some facets of your life. So honestly, I'm really telling you, this 46-year-old dude sitting here that's still engaged in those processes is not as helpful to you as the things that you have already done in your life. You've already overcome it. But, you know, going to college, I was the first person in my family to go to college. Huge well of self-doubt for me. But athletics was a strong point for me. Football and wrestling were strong. And so those areas, while they may not overlap in subject matter, the emotional response was the same. The very first time I stepped on the wrestling mat, I didn't have high confidence. In fact, I got my butt kicked. First time I stepped on the mat in college, I got my butt kicked. Whole different level. And so, but you have been through a process where you built skill at something. And does getting better at something come with maybe a little bit of self-confidence? What do y'all think? Does getting better at it make you maybe a little more confident? If you felt like you were a much better speaker, you know, like Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama, would that make you feel more comfortable giving speeches? Yeah, that's one right there. That's one, giving speeches. How many people like giving speeches? Raise your hand if you enjoy giving speeches. Yeah, okay, hey, I hope somebody took those names down. That's how, that is a very unique skill. Not many people, some people, it makes their heart go up and they start sweating just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, I've been doing it for a long time, it's a part of my job, but it still makes me nervous. But that's the power of practice. Anything you practice, you get good at, but there's even something deeper than that. It's one thing to build skill at basketball, at drawing pictures, at writing creative stories or music, or learning calculus, or learning to fly an airplane. Those specific skills are important. But when you continue to challenge yourself, when being good at basketball is not enough, and you go learn Chinese, and learning Chinese is not enough, and you learn to paint watercolors, and learning to paint is not enough, and you keep challenging yourself, there's something else you're developing, the ability to acquire skill. And at the same time, you're also learning to work through that emotional roller coaster of, I got really good at this and my confidence was high, but now I'm gonna go do something else challenging and it's gonna go back down as I build it up. And that ability to put yourself in a situation that requires you to deal with having that discomfort, that self-doubt, is strengthening your personal ability to respond to self-doubt. So know that you've already done it. I want to point out that you already have some of those things. And that's why I tell a long story, and I'm going to wrap it up there. You've already shown yourselves in one facet or another that you have what it takes to overcome, but also to work through it. You can do things in your doubt. You can be nervous about giving a speech and still give a great speech. You can be nervous about getting on the center court with the spotlight on and getting out there and performing your best at your craft. And you can do it in a very high confidence state, but even with a little bit of self-doubt, you can still be your best you and show up for yourself and for your teammates. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, but I would love to answer some questions or get into a dialogue, whatever you guys wanna talk about.
Who's got a question?
I've got to go.
Stand up.
Yes, sir. And what is your name?
My name is Sebastian Flores. I'm a junior. I play basketball for Lincoln. One of my questions is, how does it feel like to come back to Earth after like going like space or something?
Great question, and man, I describe it like being. I was 45. I turned 45 in space. And so I've been walking for a long time, man. I learned to walk a long time ago. But any of you have like real young siblings, like maybe toddlers that are learning to walk, and you watch them and they might like take 1 or 2 steps and they get wobbly and like bam, and they fall down on the bottom. That's how I felt. And the strange part was that I knew how to walk. Like in my mind, I knew how, but I couldn't do it. My body just wouldn't do it because I've been floating for 6 months. Yeah, it's crazy. And even just now to say it, like I got to float. I was like Iron Man for 6 months. And so my body had to relearn coordination in 1G. I mean, I went from actually here, let me tell you, how did it feel to come back to Earth? The moment we came back to Earth, We do this burn to slow down. The spacecraft starts to slow down and descend into the atmosphere, and then it hits the air, and the air resistance slows it down, and it's so hot, the air heats up so fast that it turns into a fireball, and the hot plasma and ionized gas around the spacecraft make it look like a comet coming through the atmosphere. We can't talk to anybody. All the communications are cut off for minutes, and then you slow down enough, the fire goes away, parachutes come out, first small ones to slow you down, then big ones, and the thing is rocking and rolling, man. It's like the best roller coaster ride ever. You're feeling high G forces, almost 4.5 G's. So I weighed about 1,000 pounds after weighing 0 pounds while I was in space weightless. So I went from 0 to 1,000 pounds, and then boom, we hit the water at about 7 meters per second, 25 miles per hour. We settle into the ocean. It's a nighttime landing in the Gulf of Mexico, and the ship starts just swaying gently, and we're in the water, and I can feel the weight of my body. It's like somebody just took a 200-pound blanket and threw it on my chest, man. All of a sudden, I'm just like, man, I weigh a lot. and while I'm sitting there, the lights from the jet skis and the boats, I can see them bobbing outside the window, so I know they found us. And then the next thought I had was, hey, I feel something that I haven't felt in a while, man. So when you're back in gravity, you can feel the weight of things. And I could feel the weight of my bladder. My bladder was full. And I was like, man, I sure hope they get that door open quickly.
Never thought about that.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome though. I tell you what, the other feeling, I was really glad to be back on Earth, because when you're in space, the entire time, even while you're asleep, something could go wrong and you have to perform to your best ability in the moment. And so when I landed on Earth, that was the first time that I could truly like exhale and relax and go, you know, I mean, yes, there's always some risk to what we do, but I was like, finally, man, I can rest because I know my family can rest. My parents and my wife and kids were all, you know, the whole 6 months I was in space carrying a little bit more stress. And so I was really grateful that they could also relax. Great question. Sorry it was such a long answer, but it was a great question.
I'll go. Besides journaling, like what do you do to like confront self-doubt?
Yeah, so you know, I guess I'm gonna take it up a notch first and go big picture, because one of the things that helps you, if you were gonna get into any athletic endeavor, you would wanna just increase your physical fitness, flexibility, strength, conditioning, cardio, you know, aerobic and anaerobic fitness are gonna help you in any athletic endeavor, right? And then you get into the specifics of whatever kind of sport, but fitness is important. So that's where I'm gonna start. Mental fitness is something that we don't think a lot about, but it starts by doing everything you can for your mental well-being. And it's funny because it's not a super complicated thing. Brain health and neuroscience might sound all highfalutin, but I've listened to lots of neuroscience, lots of people, doctors who specialize in cognitive health and performance. And you know the single most important thing you can do to keep your brain healthy? Anybody? Anybody ever heard of this or talk to their doctor when you get your annual checkup? Ask them about your brain. Hey doc, how do I keep my brain healthy? They're not gonna give you a big old diatribe on cognitive performance. They're gonna tell you, eat healthy and exercise. Moving your body and taking care of your body is the single greatest thing you have to keeping your brain healthy. Mental health starts with physical health. It is a facet of your physical health. And you know, you might hear people talk about crossword puzzles and Sudoku and taking supplements like ginkgo biloba. Go to the gym, get on the track, get on the court. Moving your body is the single greatest way to keep your brain healthy. And when you get older, when you get up in years, things like dementia, those things are also combated by physical fitness, keeping your body healthy. So that's the first level, is to just remember that your brain health is a part of it. And then in terms of practices, everyday things that you can do, well, physical fitness is a part of it. Even if, like little things, I always look for an opportunity to use my body. When I walk into an airport, and I'm in airports a lot, and I see an escalator right next to stairs, I take the stairs. If I can walk somewhere, I walk. I mean, I try to use my body to do what God made this form to do, and it was to work. And nowadays, people who do a lot of jobs where they sit at a desk for a long time, they're not using their body the way it was intended to be used. You know, we used to have to work for our food. So anyway, moving your body every day in one way or another. And I know you athletes, I don't have to tell you that, but when you get to be my age, it gets a little bit harder, you know, when that's not one of your primary functions. Journaling was a big one, and I know you knew that already. But let me tell you this. When you look at what societies around the world, a lot of studies about who lives the longest, but also the quality of life, who has the highest quality of life. And the reason I believe that is connected to self-doubt is because those things, self-esteem. Esteem is just a fancy word for value. So I'm gonna stop saying self-esteem. I'm gonna say self-value, okay? Valuing yourself and valuing the people around you is a group activity. And it helps, even though I heard somebody earlier talking about how hard it might be to take a compliment. When you truly are plugged into your people, when you truly have a network of support, a web of support, it's still possible to fall all the way down, but you at least have a safety net that can catch you. It's not always guaranteed to catch you, but it can catch you. So having real friendships. You know, I hear my kids like joke about stuff they might hear in like, you know, songs or whatever, but like, you know, I use this term. You know what it means to say like, that's my day one? You know what that means? Like, I still communicate. One of my best friends from high school joined the Navy right after I did. And some of my friends joined the Navy right out of high school. And then one of my good friends is a researcher, and she and I do work together because our career fields overlap. But like, I moved a lot as a kid, so I don't have any friends from like that I've known as long as I've been alive. My closest friends I've known since I was in 10th grade. So for me, that's day one. And like these folks are my day one. And so how I keep them integrated in my life process. We talk about our kids, and you know, because it helps to share those struggles that you may have, the successes as well. But that's the easy part. It's easy to say, hey man, my kid just got into college and she knows where she's going, and that's easy. But it's like also likewise, hey man, I'm struggling with this and I'm having a hard time, man. My girls are teenagers and these boys keep calling. That's not a joke. That's a conversation I'm having with my dudes, with my day ones right now. But it's helpful to hear them talk about, some of them have grandkids already. Some of my partners have grandkids already. And it's helpful to hear them talk through what they did, how they dealt with those situations. So that's another one, having a network of support. And here's something, I don't know, I don't use social media a ton. But something that I've seen as a trend on social media, and I think it probably started as a joke, but I think there's really something to this. Because look, man, I'm from Pomona. I don't know, I know y'all are in San Diego. I went to San Diego State for a semester, but I went to Cal Poly up the road 6 hours. But I'm from Pomona. I don't know if any of you know about Pomona, but I'm from Pomona like me and sugar-free. So when I was growing up, the idea that I'm about to express to you was one that would have been hard for me to hear and even harder for me to take action on. But I've got a couple of, I'll share them. I'll text them to Captain C in a minute, but so you can see these videos. But there's a trend on social media about Black men frolicking. Have you heard this? Yes. And that word is very specific, like Black men frolicking. Again, this idea of a space to be well and to be supported. A lot of us live in communities where we have to put our toughness on all the time. And that's how I grew up. And so knowing you can find a space, like that's what I think is clutch about this idea of being able to frolic, is that it means you have to find a space. Like even if you don't have long green fields with flowers all around them, you might have like a workshop in your grandfather's garage. That's where I frolicked when I was a kid. When I think about it, I love when I was in my grandfather's garage. I could have been in a spaceship, on the space station, on a NASCAR track, at the LA Coliseum like the Raiders. Man, it was my happy place. I could imagine an event with no judgment. And that was a safe place for me. And that is a way to pump yourself up. It's important to have people who can pump you up. It's important to have places and processes where you can pump yourself up. So I would encourage you to, if you're going to use social media anyway, check out this trend of black men frolicking. And it isn't just for the dudes in the room. That idea is about having a space that you can be free and express yourself without fear of judgment. Because that's healthy. Another trend for places around the world where people live the longest and are the healthiest. Let me see, I feel like I need to give you one more way to combat self-doubt. We talked earlier about the power of training, and not just because it makes you good, like being able to hit a jump shot or make your free throws, that might give you confidence. But one thing that gives you confidence is attacking that self-doubt or addressing it head on. So doing things, listen, and this is just the realness of it. Doing things that make you nervous, doing things that put you in that place of vulnerability and self-doubt is a way to address self-doubt. So, okay, let me ask this a different way. How many of you don't like giving speeches? Come on, be honest. I appreciate that honesty too, okay? So listen, if you have to give a speech, you probably don't want to wait until it's like final exam time and you got to give your best speech, okay? Start simple. Look in the mirror and just talk to yourself about tying your shoes, making a peanut butter jelly sandwich or a bowl of cereal. And then when you get real comfortable with that, it sounds like a joke, but this works, y'all. I teach this to people. Talk to a friend, a really close friend, one who can like make fun of you and you're okay with it. Give them your speech, but try to do your best. And then tell you what they think. Let them help edit. Talk about your posture, your presentation, your pace, your voice. Are you way up here? Or are you coming down here in your good presenter voice? Let them give you feedback. And then take that feedback. Try to integrate some of it, make it your own, and then give that same speech to another friend, or a brother, sister, your parents. And then start with a small group, but then a bigger group. And before you know it, this is connected to what I was saying earlier. It might still make you nervous to give speeches, but you don't care. You get up there and you knock it out of the park and give a great speech, even though your heart rate might be up. That's working through doubt. But then when you've done that for years, like that's where I am now. It doesn't make me as nervous anymore, but it still makes me nervous. But I can do it even when I have that self-doubt because I've been practicing it for so long. So practice may not make perfect, but it will make you better. Anything you practice, you get good at. Did I give you enough things that you can walk away with today and put into practice like after lunch?
Yes, sir.
That was a question for you. That's a great question. Did I give you enough things? Like, I think those aren't big things either. That's not like me telling you, go be smart. This is stuff you can take today. You can try all of these different things today, right? Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Great question.
Anybody else? Questions? So Vic, okay, we got one more question.
Big thank you for being here today, and I'm glad to hear you said you went to San Diego State for a minute, it sounds like, and I'm sure everybody's been captivated by the run San Diego State had to the national championship game. And two things I'd like you to talk about if you can. The concept that great teams win close games, and I know you're not flying about alone, you got a team with you, and how you interplay with the teammates. And then the difference between blind faith and false hope.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, man. Yeah.
And
that's
especially
deep.
as it relates to sports too.
How much time do we have? Well, listen, first of all, there's a saying, because I have an international, this mission, Artemis 2 is breaking a lot of records, setting a lot of firsts and, all this. There's a lot of, taglines to it, but one really unique thing is we're going to take the first non-American out of low Earth orbit. We've got international partners on the space station and in low Earth orbit, but never has anyone but an American. In fact, only 24 white men have gone to the moon. And so we are going to take a Canadian with us. And I thought about this a lot, this idea of if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. One of the ways that our space agency has decided we can do things for the long term that we wouldn't be able to do if we did them by ourselves. Listen, when we went to the moon the last time, President John Kennedy said, we're going to send a man to the moon in this decade and bring him home safely and do all those other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And we did in 1969. The first moon mission launched right at the end of 1969, and then in the middle of 1969, and then 1969, and then the last mission was at the end of 1972. One of the most amazing things humanity has ever done. You heard me talk in the video about moonshots. When we do great things, we call them moonshots. But we only did it for 3 years about. Why is that? Because it really had one goal, to beat the Russians. It was about us. We did it alone. This program, one of our strategic aims is to do it responsibly and sustainably. So we're building a coalition. Even though there's a Canadian on my crew, this team is way bigger than that. 23 countries have signed what we call the Artemis Accords. And so I know that may not be the flavor of what you were asking about teams, but that's like something that's just on my mind and on my heart right now. But, you know, I also have been involved in athletics my entire life. And, you know, people, you know, read my resume, which I don't like listening to my resume, but they always focus on the academics. Oh, he's got 3 master's degrees and flight school, he's a test pilot. The thing in my life that is at least as responsible as everything else is team sports. If you took all my team sports experience and put it on one side of a scale, you could take everything else in my life and put it on the other side, and it would at least balance out. Team sports have been the substance of my success. One aspect of it is because I don't want to let my teammates down. When we win a game, we celebrate on the field, but Monday, we're back in practice. If we lose, what are we doing on Monday? We still go back to practice because I've made a commitment in public to the people to my left and right. And we have all given, you know, our work and the leadership to our coaching staff and our captains. I think sports is a great analog for not just human space flight, not just technical things, not just academic things, but it is a great metaphor for thinking about how you set up your life. When I was talking about strategies for dealing with self-doubt, that team, that network of people to help pump you up, teammates are a great example of that. You know, in the military, we have a saying, you know, when we went to war in Iraq, man, I didn't know anything about the Middle East. I didn't know anything about Islam. In fact, I became a history buff flying missions in Iraq. I was going to the library, reading every book we had on Islam and the Middle East, and because I didn't know anything about it. And people would say, well, then why are you fighting? And I'm like, I'm not fighting because I hate anyone. I'm fighting because I love the brothers and sisters to my left and right. And that has been just a key thread in the fabric of my life. And so I can't overemphasize the power of teams and the power of teamwork. And I'll say this, and I got to bring it back to this. The team that I grew up with, my mother and father, are, again, directly responsible for me being where I am. But that was the first team that I was a part of. And now that I'm a father and I have a wife and we've got 4 daughters, that team is why I do what I do. And so teams, whether you like it or not, teams are a part of how you do this. I'm a crew of a group going to the moon, but this planet we live on even, it is a big old spaceship of rock and water, and we fly around the universe together. I mean, we're on a spaceship right now. It's just called Earth. It's real big, but we're a team, whether you like it or not. When you hear people say, I'm not a people person, that doesn't make sense. You're a human being. Homo sapiens are a people person. We're social primates. And so we're meant to do this together. It's why we've survived this long. Okay, and the last thing you asked me was, I'm gonna put it in some terms. I've been reading a couple of books, which I'll recommend to you if you're interested in these topics. The Culture Code and a book called Dare to Lead. The Culture Code and Dare to Lead. Dare to Lead, phenomenal read. She uses the term, you said false hope, and I forget the other term, but
Blind faith. Blind faith, false hope.
So, you know, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I go to church, but I read my Bible and I try to understand it, and then I try to live out my faith. And I think it's important to understand the difference between like blind anything or false anything and true. What in that book Dare to Lead, what the author, the researcher calls grounded confidence. And you know, y'all might say, I don't know why you believe in God, man. You ain't never seen God. You ain't never seen his face. You ain't never shook his hand. You never heard his voice. But I will tell you, my faith is not blind. It's grounded. But that is part of what faith means. It's you know, hoping in things that you don't see. And that's scripture. And just yesterday, I was talking to one of my NASA friends about the power of ancient wisdom. If people have been reading the Bible for thousands of years, that alone should tell you something. There is a reason that it has lasted this long. And I'm not trying to give you a sermon here. I'm just trying to help you appreciate, my faith is not blind. It isn't just because somebody told me. I have researched, and so now I'll bring it back. I do have 3 master's degrees. I've written some published, things in papers and journals. And, it isn't because of ignorance at all. I am very clear about what science knows, but also what it can know. And because I have paid attention to what physics knows and what it knows, it isn't capable of telling us. There are questions it will answer. Physics has limits. And that right there, the beginning of the universe, for example, that concept of Big Bang, if you realize what theoretical physicists are telling us by their saying there's a beginning of time and space, think backwards. We think linear because we're humans, but from an omni perspective, if that's the beginning of time, that's also the end of science. Science can't affect before that, which means science has told you its own limits. And so there has to be something bigger than science that holds it together. And so that's a part of what's grounding my faith. It isn't because there's just a void and you throw things in it. Now, here's another thing though. So it requires work. Being a man of faith isn't just blindly doing anything or just sitting in a pew listening to somebody else talk. Like I said, I read my Bible. But also going to college. Back when I was in high school, 16 years old, people telling me you should go to college, study science or engineering. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening to them, but I don't really know what I'm getting into. And I know that I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know if I can handle the work at that level. But I didn't. I had to step out in faith, but I was also doing my work. I was physically training for college sports. I was working hard in classes, trying to get those SAT scores up. I also was reading. When those websites say, hey, here, come to our college, here's what it's like. I was trying to do as much to fill my head so that my heart would be ready for that. I didn't know what it was going to feel like to step on a college campus and be the first person in my family to do it. So, grounded faith, I think the way you keep from being a blind anything, because you will take leaps of faith. You will take some steps where you don't exactly know where that path is, and you still have to take a step in order to progress and to grow. And you might take some leaps of faith, but that faith ought to be grounded because you've had some experience, you've done some research, and when all else fails, you have people in your life who love you and want to see you succeed, and maybe sometimes it was just because you listened to them. I know I've probably said it a bunch of times, why I've gotten to where I've gotten to. I will say this, because this is truly the answer. Listening to my father. When I was in college, first of all, my father helped me pick where I was going to go to college. I had made my mind up, and he said, let's go visit this one more school. Let's just go talk to the wrestling coach. After I was in school, I was looking into joining the Navy, and I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I've always liked, I wanted to be a police officer like my dad, a stunt man, and kind of like, I'm an adrenaline junkie, if you will. And my dad said to me, yeah, being a SEAL might be fun, but what would you do with it after that? It's 1997, I'm still in college, I'm a junior in college. And my dad says to me, Jerome, his name is Victor too, so he calls me by my middle name. He said, Jerome, I don't think you want to be a SEAL forever, but if you learn to fly and then you have your engineering degree, you never know. You might mess around and become an astronaut.
Come on.
So what is another way to help you build that faith in whatever it is, in your future aspirations, in your ability to go to college, to play basketball, to play in the NFL, whatever it is that you want to grow, to become the responsible, productive citizen that you are now. Some of you are adults, so some of you are on your way to adulthood. A big part of that too is the research that you do, but also the research that your board of directors does. If you have teachers, counselors, pastors, scout troop leaders, mentors, and even each other, then you have what in corporate America, people pay big money to have a board of directors or a board of advisors, and you have it, but the currency is love and support. And so take advantage of that, because as you get older, it gets harder to have those. And one way that you can ground your faith, ground your hope, ground your ambitions is to do the research, do the work, but also to listen to those that have taken that journey before you.
Amen. Hey, Vic, oh, Manny, you got a question? Fire away.
My name is Manny, and Manny Barnett, and how do you? what's the question? Oh yeah, I just graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And how do you get away from self-doubt, knowing that you might not come back from space? Like that's a possibility.
Yeah. Man, you may not like this answer, but like, I've been in this battle for so long, man. I've been sparring with it for so long. I'm just used to it. Like, it pops up and it doesn't scare me. I just know it's there, and I'm gonna still have to spar with it. I'm gonna wrestle with it. But the thing is I beat it. I know I can, so I'm not afraid of that fight. And I'm sorry to use like I'm not trying to overemphasize violence, but like this one is literally a fight. Okay? So my first spacewalk, man, I was out there in the vacuum in the sunset, and I'm trying to bend this tube, and I'm like literally using moves I learned in wrestling, and I was just like, man, I'm wrestling in the dark in space. This is nuts. Yeah. But so here's the thing. At this point, because I've gotten so used to it, I know it's gonna come. I know I can beat it. I might lose this round, but I'm gonna win the fight. It's actually fuel. And I'm not trying to overemphasize sports, but I keep coming back to it because it's a big part of what got me here. Is look, I know what I'm up against. So I know the training program I have. I'm getting my mind, body, and soul ready. Because ultimately, it's not my choice if I come back. I may not. I have my life in order. My family is well taken care of. And of course, I want to come back, but I would be a fool if I didn't prepare for me not to. But this isn't the first time I had to do that. I flew in combat in Iraq in 2004. And so, so I've had to walk that path before. But the main thing I want to tell you is, you need to learn to handle self-doubt first. There's layers to this, and you develop. And initially, we need to take those tactics, those tools to beat back self-doubt. But no, it's gonna come back. Self-doubt is going to come back. As long as you're alive and a human, it is going to find ways into your life. From other people, but also from the most dangerous place, from you. Build those tools, just like you build your body in the gym, on the court, on the track. Build your ability, your resilience, your ability to beat back self-doubt. And over time, if you keep that process, just know you have it. Just know it's there. You'll get to a point in your life when you know you have that. You can have confidence in your ability to overcome it or work through it. To get rid of it, or to get rid of it temporarily, or just work with it on your back. It's going to jump on your back, but you're going to keep moving. But here's what it does for me now. I've been doing this grind for a long time, and self-doubt pops up, and I treat it as gasoline. It's fuel, baby. Self-doubt is fuel for me. It means it's a reminder that I have work to do. And I can't do all that work by myself. I'm a praying man. I'm a father, a husband. I have friends who help me and invest in me. And so I use all of those. All of those are a part of my process. And so for this mission, I'm going to use all of those things like I did for my first mission. And we're going a lot further. We're going a lot farther from home. And my bathroom and my shower, and my bed. But one, I have faith in my team at NASA. I have faith in my crew. I have faith in that machine. We've been building this thing for a long time, and we know a lot about it. But nothing is perfect, and it could go poorly. But what we're doing is, I believe, much more important than any one person. And so I will step in that gap to push humanity forward, as we try to get out and explore this place that we find ourselves in, all of this creation that we call our solar system. And so for me, that's not something that I'm afraid of, but that's also that's not a flex. That's not machismo. That's grounded. This is my job. This is my profession. But you can go out there and ask the bus driver or the person who flies the airplanes. They may not come back. Several of those things have left the bus depot, left the airport, and they never came back. People drive to work and they never come back. And so I know what I'm getting into. And my motivation to get back to my family, when those things start to creep up, I turn them into fuel. And that's why I study as hard as I do. If this crew has a chance at saving the mission, saving the vehicle, and saving each other, you can trust that we're gonna know what to do and do it. But we also recognize some things are out of our hands, you know? And that's a part of why, as much as, you know, one side of the coin is technical, education, training, you know, what I bring to work in my head and what I can do with my hands, that other side of the coin exists. I'm a man of faith, and I realize that there are things that are just much bigger than me and that are out of my control. And I just want to make sure that my life is ready whenever I may be called home. I don't want that. I'm doing everything I can to get back. But in the meantime, I treat that self-doubt as fuel because I owe it to my crewmates. I've got to step up and do all that I can. I'm the pilot of the mission. So I've got to know this spacecraft backwards and forwards. I've got to know what we can do normally and in an emergency situation. And I've got to be ready to work with that crew to get us back to Earth safe. Because that's the ultimate mission. It's not to get to the moon. It's to get back to Earth safely.
Wow, that's right.
That was powerful.
I
That was
am.
powerful. One other question?
Awesome.
Good morning, sir. Taylor Haggerty. I'm one of the mentors here. I'm a lieutenant in the Navy. I'm a judge advocate, currently a defense attorney. And so two questions. One is fairly short. Are you still active duty? I just don't understand the process of that. Okay, and then also, I'm sure you've been in this position a lot of times where, you know, you're a senior officer doing some of the things that we don't normally get to see in our career, legislative fellowship or, and, you know, going to space, being an astronaut. So for, you're in a room full of junior officers, some senior retired, who look like you, who are kind of going through those things. You know, we want some mentorship as well, sir. You know, what else, what information or anything you have for some junior officers who are trying to, you know, make those steps and do those things and be those leaders and be those mentors and, you know, get everything out of these institutions that we can, even though, you know, we might have those self-doubts, we struggle with those imposter syndromes as well. If you couldn't tell, I was a hand that raised where I do like to talk, but that's my question.
Yes,
Great question.
thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you in the room that may be the mentors, the teachers. Listen, what you're doing is great, and so I don't have a canned response to this. This is a discussion really, but first of all, what you're doing right now. Hey, here's another tactic for dealing with self-doubt. When you don't know what to do for yourself, stop trying to go do something for somebody else.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. That's real good. That's real good.
Let that sink in for a minute. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, but it's worth it.
That's right.
Stop trying. You know, your grandma might say, let go and let God. But then go, the term wait, when people say wait on God, the term wait is the root of the word waiter. One definition of wait is to serve. I've always loved that definition. So put your issue on the shelf, but while you're waiting on that, go wait on somebody else. Go serve. And that's what you're doing. And that's a great way. Oh, that's beautiful. So one, thank you, but really, thank you for what you're doing today. I'm grateful for all of your service and for letting me be here to be a part of it. Network, that web, you know, we have it's a text string. It used to be an email chain. There was a time before that it was a phone tree. And we have this group called the BAN, the Black Aviator Network. And boy, let me tell you, boy, if that didn't exist, I might not even still be in the Navy in these 26 years. I've been running this race. But that group of people, man, some of the best advice I've ever heard, like when you make your decision to stay in the Navy or get out, analyze the other one and write down the pros and cons. Write them down and look at both. Even if you're getting out, look at staying in and write down the pros and cons. I did that and it helped me. Anyway, that network has been extremely powerful. So the network is a big part of it because no matter where we are in our journeys, you know, I'm in 06, which blows my mind. I'm a captain in the Navy, man. I've been in this for a long time, but I still have mentors. There's still somebody who has already run this leg of this race.
Yes.
I mean, one of my good friends I went through flight school with is Winston Scott, Captain Winston Scott. He's up at Lemoore. He is a carrier air group commander, big dog. I mean, probably the next black admiral that the Navy is gonna pin on, which I love that. But his father, Winston Scott Sr., was a NASA astronaut. I didn't know that when I met him, but you know, it's one of my best friends and I love that. So there is always somebody who has run a leg of the race. And when you open yourself up to that, the universe will probably find a way to either put you in their path or put them in your path. And it's sometimes harder as you get more senior to quiet your inner voice that tells you you know what you're doing. But that's sometimes the most effective. Boy, I got to space and I had trained for 7 years between astronaut candidate training and specific mission training. I had trained for 7 years. And when I got up there, there were times where I was looking at the thing and I was like, I have no idea what this is. I know I took a class on this, but I have no, and in my brain, it's like, you're about to mess this up. You don't know what you're doing. Okay, no, wait, you do because you've been trained. And I had to just quiet all that down. And I tell rookies this all the time. When you go up to space, all the training you've ever done, the best training you're gonna get is from space itself. It's gonna teach you, but you have to quiet your inner voice to listen to it. It doesn't speak loudly, it speaks very quiet. And this is true of mentorship as well. For us older mentors, we miss often the lessons we learn from the young people because we have such a loud inner voice. We think we have to be the ones providing the gospel. And the good news comes from us and you. And I have learned so much and I know I've been talking a lot today. I did not intend to talk as much as I have been, but we learn a lot from listening. And so even those of us who have been, long in the game, we still are learning. If you're alive, you are learning. It's important. John McCain and I wrote an intro to a book together, and he wanted to tell me a bunch of stories, and he asked me to write it for him. It's a book called Saltwater Leadership, and he wrote the introduction. But he asked me to actually draft it up, and he focused it on this idea. He said, my grandfather was a carrier group commander, and he said, and this story to me is the essence of leadership. After each mission, he would go to the pilots, these young 20-somethings, and he is an admiral, and he would just ask, he would like sit and listen. And he said, because his grandfather believed when you stop listening, you stop leading. Oh man, that was powerful. And I think as we get up in years, sometimes we think our job is to just provide, and we can provide, but it's frustrating to know this, but sometimes you can be right too early. And telling someone, hey, this is a way to do it. It doesn't hit the same if they haven't been through some things yet. And sometimes you want to avoid those things, but sometimes they need to get in the mud a little bit before you show them where the doormat is to wipe their feet. And so that message resonates more because of what they've been through or what they may be in. And so as mentors, we also have to listen and remember we learn from those that we mentor. So networking, listening to the mentorship is a cycle. Arrows go every direction. It's not just a one-way thing. And here's another one. Feedback. That makes me think about feedback. I get asked by people all the time, I work for somebody that I don't appreciate their feedback. But I don't believe there's a such thing as bad feedback. Even if you think somebody's not qualified to give you feedback, I would take some time and sit with what they say to you. And in our service in the military, you get constant feedback, especially as DOD has gone into these 360 feedback programs or different things where you don't just get feedback from your boss. Your boss doesn't just write your evaluation. You get input from your peers and even your subordinates. Man, let me tell you, some of the most impactful things I've ever heard in my Navy career came from my junior sailors and my chief. What else? Man, that was such a good question. And also ask other people. Keep asking this question. If you just can keep your mindset on this, if you meet people and ask this question, that is a good, because the other thing that's sitting on my heart right now is don't take what I say as any kind of gospel. Keep asking people this question and find what works for you, right? We're building a toolbox to attack problems that we haven't even seen yet. So you need all the tools. And so, the people there in the room and as you continue in your Navy journey, just be open to the universe, crossing paths with people, crossing you into their path and them into your path for that very reason, and be open to it, even when it doesn't look like the way you think it is. Because let me tell you this, Something somebody said to me once that like, just them super quick but profound things. They were like, yeah, my dad was a dare cop too. He was the dare cop in my school, drug alcohol resistance education. They said, you can learn a lot from the dare cop, but you better listen to the alcoholic. I was like, whoa, that's pretty profound. You can learn from anybody. You can learn from anybody. Gosh, I feel like I should give you one more, and then I'll end here. You know, being a leader of any sort is an interesting dynamic. Sometimes we think it's about charisma and getting up and like giving the team, go that way, take that hill, and then they do it. You had a good job. But man, sometimes the most important thing a leader does is share his vulnerability. Like, man, I really messed that up, yo. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I did, I planned, but boy, that didn't go well. What do y'all think? And opening the door, one, to vulnerability, but two, to the talents and strengths of the people in the room, does something for relationships that, you know, people have studied this. There are books written on it. Two of the books I mentioned talk a lot about vulnerability. Dare to Lead and The Culture Code, and how powerful that action is when it comes from one of us, somebody that the world has put in this position of prominence. When you go, man, I really messed that up, but thankfully I had these teammates who they kept me on point, and we got through it together because of their effort. That is like organizational solid gold. But it doesn't just have to be from the commanding officer. We have opportunities to engage in that often. And as my buddies have started to become squadron commanders, air wing commanders, we talk a lot about leadership. And some of the ideas that just kind of circulate through my friend group all the time are just like how at this point, you know, you're constantly you're like one action from losing your job. But even if you try to prevent it, you're still one step from losing your job. So embracing that, and you're not always going to be able to do everything to keep you from getting fired. So you still have to lead with integrity, but you also can't control everything. So one core aspect of being a good leader, and I believe it's about being a good mentor too, and boy, and it's also true about being a parent. I have a kid in college now. I have a kid going to college in the future, in the fall, is understanding and taking smart risks. You cannot lead without taking risks. Leaders try all the time to reduce risk to zero. Those leaders are often micromanagers. You cannot lead well. Good leaders, average leaders, have followers that are maybe reluctant. Good leaders might have leaders or followers that are at least interested in following, but a great leader steps out of the way and grows leaders. And that's hard. It is hard to step out of the way. But I think that's an important part of our role as mentors is sometimes you gotta let them run out there and, you know, get in the rain before saying, hey, take this umbrella, take this raincoat. Sometimes you just let them run out the house and get wet and come back. And you just hold the umbrella and you ain't gotta say nothing. Does that make sense?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Vic, on behalf of Lincoln High School,
Thank you.
on behalf of Sharon Powell from the Understand the Grind Foundation, this is Norman Powell's foundation. That's his way of giving back. And Sharon, I'm gonna turn the mic over to you for 2 seconds. I'm sure you've got something that you wanna say. And so you've got the mic, Sharon.
All right, so can you all see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Barely.
Okay, so you know I'm in traffic headed out to LA, but I want to thank you all. To thank Captain Glover for coming. This was such a last minute invite, and for him to, you know, make that offer to be here to share his experience in life with these students, being a part of this partnership that we have with the Naval Officers Association. This is just wonderful. So I hope that everyone in the room got a lot from this presentation. I know I did. I enjoyed it, and I could relate to some of the things that they were saying. So the topics that we've been doing are right on point. And I just wish all of our attendees, you guys have been coming just dutifully, and then today we have a lower turnout, but it is a holiday weekend. So for that, it is what it is, but we learned to pivot, and we pivoted today. So this was exciting. Thank you to Michael Brunker, who's in the room, like I said, last minute to come and to be able to record and be a part of this with us. And now the partnerships in that networking and web and support that has been around all of us. And now it's just awesome. So hopefully we'll be able to have Mr. Brunker come back and share what he's doing now, because the leadership programs that he has for youth, and now that would be just a phenomenal thing to add to this and give these students some insight and to hear from those individuals that he's working with. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, to Captain Glover, just thank you. I talked to Norman this morning. He wanted to be on this Zoom, and now, but he has a game, and unfortunately for today, well, fortunately and unfortunately, his game starts at 1:00, and that he got into the arena right at 10:30 and couldn't come on board, and so now he's in play mode. So he has to focus on what he has to get done and accomplish today. So thank you all. Thank you for and for stepping up, because I couldn't be there, and this was a great pivot. So thank you all. Okay.
And again, Vic, hey man, you dropped some knowledge on us today that I really appreciate. What I find most amazing is you say that you didn't prepare, and I know you didn't, because I called Vic at about 5 or 6 o'clock last night. And
Yes.
That's when he first heard about what we're doing. And I'm glad you didn't prepare, because I think you speaking from the heart, you speaking off the cuff, you nailed it. You said things that we needed to hear. You gave us things that we can put to action, and I appreciate that. And I think you touched every mentee in the room and mentor. So I thank you for your time, and please go back and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank those lovely girls and your wife for giving them some time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would say, in my gratitude, I would like to maybe try to figure out how we can do this in person. I love this. This is one of the most important parts of my job, and I love this. And I'm here for you, right? So let's figure that out. And hopefully I can see you all in 3D.
Hopefully we'll be able to do that. Like Captain Kamardi said, we came up with this during a phone call to put this, we meet before we have our Saturday event. And at that phone call, he did the reach out. When we got the yes from Captain Glover that he would like to do this, I called Stephanie Brown, who is the principal of Lincoln, and she was about to board her flight out of New Zealand to come back to San Diego. And she's like, oh my goodness, Sharon, yes. So she put me in touch with Lori, that's in the room there. She's the technical person that got all of this together.
Thank you, Lori.
And it's just amazing how you can just reach out and in that confidence we have in one another and put all this together. So thank you to Lori in the room that made this possible. Thank you to Coach Jack, who he didn't find out until last night at the game that he was going to have this guest speaker, and that how he had to pivot to make all of this happen. So it took teamwork, and teamwork definitely does make this dream work. So thank you once again. You guys are amazing. And we'll make it happen. To put whatever it takes to put Captain Glover in the room with all of us, we'll make it happen. We just need dates that we can do it, and we'll look at all those dates, and everyone's on board to make this happen.
Awesome. Hey, again, Vic, thanks, appreciate it. Sharon, please be driven safely, and go Clippers. Go Clippers.
Thank y'all. Oh, that's a good salute. I know. That was a very good, sharp salute.
Was that incredible?
That was
Oh my
incredible.
gosh.
Okay.
That's great. Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
here's what I want to say to wrap this up. I have another slide that gives us a bunch of cues on how to deal with self-doubt. I don't think I can scratch the surface compared to what Captain Glover just told us, how to deal with self-doubt. So I'm not gonna go through that slide. I'm not gonna do it.
He didn't plan that
Because he did not, that was
He did
from
so
the
good.
heart. Okay? All I told him yesterday was, hey, here's what we're talking about tomorrow, and I just wanna use your name because I wanna ask you one question and I just want the answer. Have you ever dealt with self-doubt? And he said, of course. That's all I wanted from him, and I said, all right, I'm good. And then he said, why do you wanna know? I said, because we're meeting, here's what we're talking about, this is what we're doing. He said, well, can I talk to them? And so there was no prep. There was no session where we talked about the details. It was just, hey, I'll shoot you a video. Can you play this video in case the phone thing doesn't work? And that way you can show them the video, because I think the video might be close, but then I can come in afterwards. So there was no prep. No prep. And great questions. Great questions. I like the way you guys teased out some good stuff. Okay? And I wonder how open he would have been with some of those answers if CNN was in the room. Okay? Because I think he spoke from the heart. He wasn't worrying about what the press and the world might think. He was coming from the heart, talking about those things that are very personable, very vulnerable. I mean, he was just very real. I hope we recorded this. Oh my God, I'm gonna watch this again and again to take those nuggets that he dropped and apply them in my life.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that was powerful. And I'm really shocked. I know this dude. Are you kidding me? Okay, so hey.
For those in the room, they feel that this was valuable?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, was it worth your time?
Yes.
Okay, we will try to do this again. We will get him in the room. We'll figure it out. We'll get Victor in the room and let him really share and also hear from you. You can tell he was listening. You made him think. You made him think. He was listening, processing. And I guarantee you, that made him a better person too. So thank you for being your authentic self. Yes, ma'am.
I've got 2 markers up here. Okay, my notes, that was at the last minute, some of the things that stuck out to me. So I'd like to invite you guys to grab a marker and just add to the board. We'll erase the little heart guy up there, but add to the board something that stuck out to you today. Okay, and we're gonna take a picture and that we'll send it to Ms. Powell instead of Mr. Glover.